Saltwater country, Wadandi Boodja, land of plenty, Boodja Bula. Won't you walk softly? Gently and coolly. Feel this country up. Wadandi Boodja. I am listening, when my campfire burns, when my campfire burns. Margaret River, caught up water, married to ocean, Bula Mamba, plenty magic. Feel this country up. Wadandi Boodja. I am listening, when my campfire burns, when my campfire burns, Quella ginger, Nuri Bujara, singing country, beautiful mother, rolling cord chirping, high plenty happy, where my campfire burns, where my campfire burns, where my campfire burns, where my campfire burns.
What a truly beautiful way to start this evening. That was the nomadic song Wadandi Boodja from their album Green Shoots from Deadwood. It was a collaboration between Wadandi elders and cultural custodians and is a fabulous offering to strengthen language and korda, or love, for Boodja country. The song was nominated for a WAM Song of the Year in the folk category in 2021, and it was brilliant to see this collaboration come to life on the big screen just now for the first time in this community. Our sincere thanks to the Nomadics, Beck Schofield and Dave Mann, who are in the audience tonight. Thank you, Beck and Dave. And to artist Anton Bloom for sharing their incredible talents with us tonight. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here with us at Nalabad Maya, our story house. It is wonderful to have a full house for this very special event. For those of you who have not met, my name is Shana Carney. I am the CEO of the Margaret River Bustleton Tourism Association, and it is my pleasure to be your MC for this evening. Many of you will be aware that the First Nations Art and Cultural Awards are celebrated annually by Creative Australia, formerly known as the Australia Council for the Arts. The most prestigious of these awards is the Red Ochre Award, which pays tribute to a senior Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander for their recognition, for their outstanding lifetime achievement in the arts and their contribution to the recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander arts, culture and community, both nationally and internationally. This year's winner of the Red Ochre Award was Wadandi Elder, Sandra Hill, and we are honoured that Sandra is here tonight to welcome us to country.
Thank you, Shana, and thank you, Stuart, for inviting me to do the Welcome to Country here tonight. Kaya, everyone. Kaya. This is a wonderful place to be. It's the best place in the world to be. And if you live here, you're the luckiest people on the earth. So there's absolutely no argument about that. This country, Wadandi country, is absolutely exquisite. It is one of the most cultural places that I know of in the entire southwest, and part of that is because of the man we're here to celebrate tonight and listen to tonight, Dr. Wayne Webb. He is a cultural custodian. I'm a custodian. He's a cultural custodian, and that's because he knows everything about his culture. He knows all the stories. He knows all the sites. He knows all the places. So I feel very humbled to be kind of welcoming all of you here tonight, and Wayne, my cousin Wayne. This is Camberang, the hot season. It's warming up. All the flowers are out, as you probably can see. They're all blooming. The nights are still cool, and it's getting warmer and warmer as we go along. We have the 6 seasons. This is one of my artworks. This is called the 6 Seasons. And it's important to understand that we, as a nation, followed these seasons in everything we did. Everything that took place in our lives in the traditional times, and still, was followed by what the season told us. It's an advice committee, really. When certain flowers come out, when certain flowers go, when plants grow, when the animals go to rest and to breed and to in the winter times, it all tells us what we can and can't do on this country, and that's a dossier of living. It's a lifestyle. Would have been one of the best lifestyles on the planet, because our country was perfect. It was beautiful, and it was pristine, and we had a lot of nourishment, a lot of plants, a lot of animals, a lot of everything that you could possibly want to feed your family, to look after your family, and to keep your family safe. 2023, it's all changed. Not that seasons haven't changed a lot. They've moved a little bit that way, but they're still the same seasons, and we still do the same thing. We still follow the same traditions, even though we are living in 2023. And it's important to understand that because some of us are fair, some of us aren't so fair, and but we're all blackfellas, we're all Aboriginal people, we're all Wadandi Pibblemen, and we're very proud of that. It's wonderful. This has just blown me away to see so many community members here tonight. It makes my heart my court, my heart feel wonderful. And I feel as if this community is my mort, my family. It's just... And we just got a whole bunch of new cousins and aunties and uncles and grandparents. And it feels wonderful. Trust me, it feels absolutely wonderful. It makes my spirit soar and my heart full to see you all here tonight to support this wonderful event. And all I can say is welcome to Wadandi Boodja. Welcome to this beautiful country. Always travel safe, always tread carefully on the land, and always pay respect to the land, because if you look after country, country will look after you. So welcome with all my heart, welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. You always deliver the most moving welcome. And thank you for welcoming us not to country, but also into your heart, and we deeply appreciate that. I would now like to introduce to you the presenters of the 3000 generation and the next one. Dr. Wayne Webb is an elder of the Wadandi people, who are the traditional owners of the land we are meeting on today. He has had a lifelong involvement with ethnographic and archaeological research, ecosystem management, the creative engagement of white and black people together, and training and developing young people. He was awarded an honorary doctorate of laws at the University of Western Australia in 2021 for his work in these areas. Wayne is a founder of the Undalup Association, its inaugural chair, and a current board member, and he serves on the Cultural Advisory Committee of the Carrick Aboriginal Corporation. Stuart Hicks AO has a background in economics, management and planning. He has served as the Director General of Transport in WA, as Chair and Chief Executive of Transperth, as a WA Planning Commissioner, and as a Chair of the National Transport Commission and the South West Development Commission. He has held appointments as adjunct professor at all 4 of Western Australia's universities. He's had a long involvement with natural resource management and is a life member of Nature Conservation Margaret River Region. His deep interest and engagement in Aboriginal affairs and policy began when, in 2006, he was appointed to evaluate the framework of the Ord Final Agreement for the Office of Native Title. And later he worked intensively with the Mirrawong Aboriginal Corporation in the East Kimberley to develop their capabilities and opportunities. Stuart is chair of the Margaret River Bustleton Tourism Association, and he was appointed as an officer of the Order of Australia in 2006 for his services to government, industry and community. Wayne and Stuart have presented earlier versions of tonight's talk on a couple of occasions now, and one or two of you may have been here at the Heart when they introduced their thoughts in a keynote address at the National NRM conference here at another sellout event at Heart. Most recently, they were invited to present to the National Summit of the Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies in Perth. So we at the Margaret River Bustleton Tourism Association thought it was high time that we invite Wayne and Stuart in front of a wider audience to the community of our region. We do this because MRBTA believes, through its Capes Foundation, that we are committed to helping sustain and build the things that our community believes in: cultural, social, environmental, heritage, economics, and of course, the 60,000 years of Wadandi custodianship of this very special place. We have organised this event because we are part of this community and we acknowledge our role in it. And we are delighted to see the community's strong engagement with the event selling out weeks ago. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank Transition Margaret River, in particular Karen Major, who volunteered to have tonight recorded so we can make sure that this is shared with those that can't be with us here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Wayne Webb and Stuart Hicks, AO, to the stage.
This is not a great time in Australia's race relations. I think just about everybody agrees that Australia has made a bit of a hash of it in the last few weeks. Something that was intended in good faith to bring us together seems, for the moment, to have driven us somewhat further apart. Australia's managed to attract international scorn, it's imposed some great hurt, and maybe we've intensified national confusion and damaged communications lines. But tonight, Wayne and I want to try to move beyond that, however people voted. We are mindful that parts of this region buck the national trend, and we're optimists. Therefore, I want to say at the outset to you, Wayne, and to your people who are here with us tonight, and those who are not, that we love and respect you as much as ever, and we're with you. Not far from here is a little cave that Wadandi people sheltered in nearly 50,000 years ago. In those days, no humans on Earth had white skin. There was no cities, no agriculture, no guns, no writing, anywhere. Generations of Wadandi people sheltered in Devil's Lair. They entered through an opening which is on the right-hand side of this cross-section that you see of the cave. And in its shelter they lit fires. Through thousands of years, the floor level of the cave got higher and higher. Around 13,000 years ago, that entrance collapsed and the cave was sealed at that time. It was not till a few hundred years ago that a new entrance opened, the narrow one that you can see here on the left of the diagram. And archaeologists, including Wayne Webb, have dug excavation trenches deep into the floor of Devil's Lair. They found evidence of one of the oldest human contact sites on this planet. The ash in the layers in Devil's Lair show the changing forest above it. The Wadandi people who collected wood to burn in their fires left incontrovertible evidence of the changes in the surrounding trees. Sometimes above the cave was open savanna woodland, and other times tall karri forest. And that's a reminder that the vast changes that have occurred in climate in the last 50,000 years have had profound effects. Currently, Devil's Lair is within the karri forest. And this is the petroglyph site at Undalup, which is just a little bit further south again from Devil's Lair in Scott River. Here there's 267 engraved footprints of kangaroos and other animals, emus and other birds, carved into the sandstone sheets. The site's undated, but we know it's prehistoric and we know it's thousands of years old. It's the largest and most important petroglyph site in southwest Australia. This site has suffered from cattle and the tracks of farm machinery, but Undalup have taken it into their care, they've fenced it and provided support to the owner of the property, who in turn respects it. Maybe it was saved just in time. Kybra is an important, precious, ancient, sacred site that Wayne will tell you about in a moment. Places like Devil's Lair and Kybra are reminders that we are privileged to live in a place that has been continuously and successfully occupied by human beings for over 3,000 generations. But Wayne first needs to talk about his Wadandi heritage of more recent times.
In my body runs the blood of 3,000 generations of men and women who have lived here. These are my people, my family. And not so long ago, in 1900, they were my Wadandi cousins at their camp near Stuart Street in Busselton. Those of us who had not gone bush or been taken away to be civilised or died from disease or guns lived in bag tents like this on the outskirts of the settlement, like Busselton. There was around 300 families in Busselton there living at the time. We were kept out of the towns and out of sight. The alternative was to be rounded into missions, often without the love and guidance of our parents. So some of my people came to live at Ellensbrook, their original Bustle homestead, in the place now called Yeeble, named after my great-grandfather, Sam Isaacs. His tribal name was Yeeble. Edith Bustle ran a little hostel in a couple of rooms that were added onto her house at Ellensbrook. We were trained in white ways and dressed in white clothes. Here is my grandmother, Mary Slee. She's the lady in the middle there, the darkest one in the middle. And that's my grandfather's there, the two little boys in front of her. And the other taller one on the end here That's Sam Isaac's wife. So that's Jean Counsellor. So those two there, like I said, is my great-grandmothers. There's Tommy and Jane. And this is a photo of a house that Wadandi people lived in, Caves Road, Busselton, at Sister Park. This is in the 1960s. The house is built of sticks and tin. I'll tell you a secret. This is a home I was brought up in. This is my childhood home. It wasn't always easy. We had the best friends with the garbage collectors. And why I say that is because that's where we had to go and collect copper wire and stuff out of old fridges and old cars and burn them down so that Mum and Dad could make money for us to live on. The house was near swampy land, close to the beach. And the land close to the beach was the old end of old Ned Toby's Inlet. And that's where we got our water out of. Mum had to use cloth to strain all the mozzies and different things out. And, I think that's what landed me into trouble I'm in later in life because of, those sort of living conditions and drinking that water and stuff like that. We couldn't keep the Jugites out in the summer. We couldn't keep the cold and the wet out in winter. And I always say, well, we had a good relationship with Main Roads because we'd go and steal all their tar off the road to plug the holes up. And the old velvet soap came in handy too at times. But yeah, the picture on the right, that's Dad on the right. That's me, he's olden as a baby. And Uncle Cyril and Granddad's peeping around the back. He was always joking around, Granddad. And that's my cousins there. And the one right on the side with a hand up like that, that's my sister. So that's Vivian. So a lot of people would probably know Vivian. But my siblings and I had a good upbringing. Mum, my dad, George, and my mum, Vilma. We're loving parents. We had lots of friends and family. It was a very short walk to the beach and the water. We spent a lot of happy times there. Here's Dad teaching us how to dive for octopus, because what we had to do also, we had to learn as young kids actually to catch octopus and stuff to sell to the fishermen, to get money, yet again for the family and stuff. And the little bloke on the end there with Dad, that's me. So that's about 1961, that one. And over the other side, that's Mum sitting underneath the bower huts. We had bower huts all the way along the beach. And that's Mum sitting there. And I think there, she's pregnant for my youngest in the family, not the youngest, but the second youngest in the family, Gwenda, my sister. And my two cousins, older cousins. And growing up there wasn't many people, in our family. There was only about 14 altogether, with our cousins lived next door in the same sort of dwellings. So, to where we are now is still, a long road to where we got to now, after living that lifestyle. That's a shelter that's built on the beach across from our house. Recently I've thought about those times a bit, and that's what I was saying. And when my health collapsed and I died for a short while, when I became a great-grandfather, and when I got my honorary doctorate at the University of Western Australia, in my childhood, most of the time, I wasn't much aware of racism. Those who didn't want to mix with us stayed away from us. We learned some whitefellow stories at school. My blackfellow stories belong to me.
Anna Clark is the historian granddaughter of another Australian historian, Manning Clark, and her recent book is a reflection on how white people still live largely out of a sense that Australia's history started when we whitefellas came. Looking backwards, our white history doglegs into British history, and we still struggle to own that the black history and the black continent are part of our shared heritage. We're inclined to own just the bits of Australian history, which we call my history. How can we embrace the extraordinary and powerful Aboriginal story? It was Charlie Perkins who said that white people can inherit 40,000 or 60,000 years of culture, and all they have to do is reach out and ask for it. But this was never an open-ended invitation. As Billy Griffiths points out, it carries obligations too. The act of inheriting demands the respectful acknowledgement of all that has happened and still is happening in the confluence of cultures and histories. It's no wonder, I think, that there are secrets held and trust to be won. Aboriginal people know many things that, frankly, they will not share with people who demean, satirise, distort or steal the knowledge and damage, even destroy precious sites. Their story is for sharing, not for taking.
Kudjul. The job is to continue to find pathways to mutual respect and understanding. It's not a question of absorbing anyone's culture into anybody else's. It is a question of allowing our stories to stand side by side, robust and authentic. Each valid truth, it's not a competition. A research technique is developing which attempts to explore themes throughout European and First Nations lens. At the same time, it says that multiple stories can stand together without competition. For them to be equal and both true, in Noongar, the process is called Kudjul, which means looking both ways. As an experiment, Stuart and I want to practice some Kudjul. Briefly right now, let's enter deep time of this place, Wadandi Boodja, looking through two lenses, a white one and a black one. First, the white one.
I call this little outline the reigning sixes because, as you'll see, the number 6 features prominently. These sixes encapsulate the transformation that science says have laid the foundations of our region. In this timeline, we start 600 million years ago, when the Lewin Ridge, on which we now stand, was formed, and in the process formed the stable marine environment which this part of the planet has enjoyed for those 600 million years. Then 60 million years ago, when Sahul was created. Sahul is the continent that in its time was the mainland of Australia plus Tasmania plus New Guinea, and that entire continent of Sahul was formed 60 million years ago, and in so doing formed an island continent environment which brought the diversity which we enjoy and we see and we experience today, 60 million years growing separate from the rest of the world. Then in 60,000 years, the Wadandi arrived. People who very quickly moved into the southwest of this Sahul continent and made it their home. 60,000 years ago came the mid-Holocene, which was a warm period of great natural prosperity and growth, and many of the conditions under which we enjoy the lifestyle that is here today. 600 years ago came European empires, exploration, colonisation. 60 years came the leisure that we enjoy here today, the lifestyle, the wine, the tourism, the new social and economic growth. And 6 years ago, some scientists told us that we'd moved into a new era, the Anthropocene, where they suggest humans have become the dominant factor in the future as we go ahead. The marvels and tragedies of all these things have made this place what it is.
Kura Kura. As a black man, I can tell you the Aboriginal story. In Noongar, we call it Kura Kura. We don't tell the story like Stuart's straight line and all those numbers. We see this as a place where we have always lived. Our ancestors are the spirits in every part of country. The country was created after the knitting or cold times. There was a great earth shaking and the people were overcome by the smoke and went to sleep. While they slept, Jangara spirits came down to the land and created the hills and the valleys and rivers and streams, as well as the new birds, animals and fish. When the Yunungali woke up, the land beneath them was now soft. At Milianup, they drew in the limestone the stories and the dance of the great spirit bird called Kybra that would one day come back. Unfortunately, it would also bring with it the spirits of their dead ancestors, which should not come back. These pale spirits had forgotten all about the cultural law, which was to take only what you needed, share with your people, and always look after country so she could look after you. The seasons came and went over thousands of moon cycles until one day they saw what they thought to be the return of the Kybra spirit bird. Its big white wings floating out to sea. In fact, it was a sailing ship with its sails billowing on the winds. How could we know that this would change our lives forever? That these pale-skinned spirits would take everything for themselves. The footprints are still there today on limestone cap rock. The story passed down has many layers. What I can say is that not only did the story of our Kybra spirit bird foresee our future, but the name of the ship that my people first saw was named Kybra. In Noongar vocabularies today, Kybra means ship.
There are many truths, or to reflect the title of Bill and Jenny Bunbury's admirable book, there are many maps to guide us. We have much to learn from each other. There's wisdom and authority in our two civilisations, and the strength of the next generation will be to draw on both. This is not about assimilation, it's about sharing respectfully. Only when we non-Aboriginals can truly see ourselves as part of the continuing story of 3,000 generations of human occupation of this place, an immense and complex and rich human history, can we take our place in it. That will require us to continue to build and authenticate our understandings of each other. And in this spirit, Wayne and I want to reflect on 4 gifts from Wadandi civilisation to our generation. We call them gifts because they are inspirations hard-won by Wadandi people. These are free. In them are important messages for all of us.
So it's things without shadows. It's cycles and seasons. Mort, meaning family. Law and law, the 2 different laws. Our law, L-O-R-E, and L-A-W. And then the spirit. The first of these gifts we need to think about is the understanding that First Nations people bring to the abstract world. This is not about our boomerangs and string bags. It's about the way we approach things. That casts no shadow. This is about the ideas and the mysteries and order of life. It's about the way things move in cycles. This is not about the straight line that some white people call progress. It's about things that move in cycles, roundabouts, not straight lines. It's about seasons that are not identified by numbers and months on a calendar, but by what we see to be happening. Seasons can come late or early. They determine the calendar, not the reverse. We are on the shoulder of Camberang right now, the wildflowers, the kangaroo paws, the long, new, fluffy flower stalks on the balgas, the snowy flowers of the peppermint tree, snakes and the lizards. We see on the path birds and their young, the flowering of the Boodja tree, or the Christmas tree. The abstract world can be seen in the power of the central role of family, mort. We feel it is in the way we govern ourselves in our laws or law, and the fact that every space of country is full of spirits, which include the spirits of all our ancestors who came here before. What is a civilization? Civilization is when you come to grips with the rhythms of life, when you bring understanding and order to human engagement with the place where we live.
The second gift from the Wadandi is what they call kalip. It means the skills in building and holding and conveying knowledge from generation to generation. And of course, the marvel is that they have done this without benefit of written language. Of course, they built and spread knowledge with a deep and sophisticated set of other forms of communication in their stories, in their legends, their songs, their art, initiations and their training. And of course, they practiced deep respect for their truth holders.
You know, maybe we Aborigines won't have a useful voice till Australians are willing to listen to us.
Yeah.
Maybe what we need is more white men's ears, not just black man's voices. We need people to listen. I think perhaps when we're all talking with each other, we might get a better yarn. Well, I can't crochet or knit, so. No, I don't mean this kind of yarn. I mean the kind of yarn when people sit down and talk, not like at a business meeting with agendas and PowerPoint slides and time constraints and minutes. And you've got to take the minutes and stuff. We mean where everybody has a say, where people build trust and understanding and come to see each other's views better. That takes time. Now, I know there's a couple of problems with good yarning. Yarning takes time, and there's not a lot of us blackfellas to go around. If I sat down and had a yarn with all 400 of you, one after the other, I would have enough time to hunt a lizard. I wouldn't have enough time to hunt a lizard or kangaroo or whatever. There's about 1,000 people who identified as Aboriginal in our Augusta Margaret River and Busselton region. There are 50 times more whitefellas. So we have to manage it and remind you yarning works pretty well, even when there's not a blackfella in sight. If Stuart and I are making sense, please have a yarn with some whitefellas about this.
Our region is blessed with good organisations which are involved in various ways in building and holding and conveying knowledge. And of course, at the top of my list, I need to mention the Undalup Association, which is Wayne's proud Aboriginal body dedicated to Wadandi knowledge and reconciliation. I'd also mention another, which is the Carrick Aboriginal Corporation, the corporation which is the regional one for southwest Bajara. It's one of the inheritors of responsibility that arises from the most comprehensive native title agreement in Australian history. Its chair is Professor Stephen Van Leeuwen and its new CEO is Abby Phyllis. They send tonight their best wishes. They can't be with us because they have a board meeting in Perth. But I acknowledge with pleasure Carrick's brand new Manager of Lands and Heritage, Ben Tannick, who is here with us tonight. Another of our organisations in the region is Nature Conservation Margaret River Region. Nature Cons is building the skills and the knowledge and the resources to help protect and nourish endemic plants and creatures, and it's informing this and supported by the Wadandi people as it must be. And the fourth body I've mentioned is Capes Foundation, which is the new division of the Margaret River Busselton Tourism Association. It works in close collaboration with Wadandi people and is working to nurture, protect and promote the social, cultural, environmental and Indigenous values and heritage of our region. I'd mention just 3 cases of its work. The first is the new initiative called Ancient Lands at Nilgi Cave, which is formally to be opened later this month. It's a $3.6 million investment, which includes Aboriginal educational and tourism opportunities with Kumal Dreaming. It would be impossible without the help of the City of Busselton, whom I acknowledge. A second is Eagles Heritage, where Capes Foundation is building Australia's foremost facility for interpretation of the environmental, cultural significance of birds of prey and a leading centre for education, research and rehabilitation of the birds. And in that, I acknowledge that Augusta Margaret River Shire has recently voted to vest the Eagle Heritage property with MRBTA, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to progress that one. The third example I would mention of Capes Foundation activities is Bunuroo Festival next year. And I'm pleased to announce tonight that Undalup has invited MRBTA to join it to mount an extraordinary Bunuroo Festival next year. And this particular partnership, Undalup will elevate the cultural and artistic content of the great festival, and MRBTA's Capes Foundation will join it to lift the festival's resources in areas like staffing and promotion, site presentation and management. But there are many other individuals and organisations in the mix of building, holding, disseminating information in our region. I acknowledge the huge role of local governments, for example, the Shire of Augusta Margaret River and the City of Busselton. I thank the councillors and officers of both those governments. I thank outgoing Shire President Paula Cristofanini and outgoing Mayor Grant Henley, but we're confident that the incoming President Mayor, Julia Meldrum and Phil Cronin, will continue the fantastic work. At the Shire, we ought also to take the opportunity to thank Jason Cleary, who's here tonight, for the influential and helpful role, Jason, you've played in building authentic relationships. We wish you well in your new appointment and are sorry to lose you from Margaret River. Other bodies include our schools, our local police, our businesses, the wine industry, and the others amongst the generous supporters that we have tonight. Their continued work and commitment is vital. Properly resourced, well-run, informed, collaborative, we will move together as a community.
Interdependence. We've got ranger programs, joint management of Lewin Naturalist National Park and fire. The third gift from Wadandi people we would mention is the understanding that everything, every stone, every stick, the water and the fire, everything is alive. We see all the world is living and everything depends on everything else. We humans are just a fragile part of it. That's why the Undalup welcomes the grant of $1.3 million for a 3-year program to develop the next stage of our Ranger program. The Ranger program is the best way to educate our young people about natural interdependence. We welcome our community support for the 6-point plan to save the future of the Lewin Naturalist National Park. The park is under pressure. It needs more resources. And it needs Wadandi help. Wadandi people must be invited to join DBCA people to jointly manage the park. This already happens in national parks, northern parts of the state.
What you're looking at here is one of the survey sheets which was drawn by Marmaduke Terry. And it was the first detailed survey that was carried out of this region. It was the end of the 19th century. When he was doing this work, Marmaduke Terry was staying at Warcliffe House, where he wooed and won the youngest Bussell daughter, Philomena, who he married in 1900. Marmaduke Terry was said to have a knowledge of the southwest land unequalled by any man. He had an especially intimate knowledge of this region and became the owner of Warcliffe. Just so that you can get a bearing as to what you're looking at, there's Conto's campground, there's Cape Frasernet, there's Mammoth Cave, and there's Jarradine campground. So you're looking at a slice of the coast in that very early and first survey. What is most interesting about this old map and the others in the same set, both north and south of it, is the land between the ocean and the edge of Wadandi Forest. I've coloured the area green here. Marmaduke Terry labelled that green as clear coast hills with good grazing. And indeed, the bustles, when they operated there, Wharncliffe Holding established stockyards, which Terry marked clearly on the map in the middle of that to handle the vast quantity of cattle that they grazed on this green strip of so-called clear coast and good grazing. Today it's possible to go to around about where Conto's campground is with a camera and look south across that area of green. This is the so-called good grazing country today. The coastal land has reverted to heath. It has no grazing capability now, and for that matter is in the national park, of course, and mustn't carry livestock. But the memory remains that for thousands of years Wadandi played their part in nature, part of the living cycle. These were their hunting grounds, which they managed with frequent small fires. It wasn't the bustles who cleared that grazing land. They inherited it when they moved into the area. They didn't take any bush out of it because it was grazing country. Be clear that we don't advocate returning the coast to cattle grazing. We ask, though, that we remember that this country has been managed by thousands of generations before us, and we need to be clear how we propose to manage it in future. The choice is not just to leave it alone and extinguish bushfires from time to time. The bushfire move south is seared in the memories of those who were there. But among the destruction was one odd-shaped parcel of coastal heath near Point Road in the National Park. How was it saved? It wasn't done by the firefighters, at least not on that particular day. The answer, it seems, is an experiment that a senior and able fire officer conducted before the bushfire. This small parcel was burned as Wadandi might have burned it. A small fire was lit in ideal conditions, no high temperatures, no winds, and it seems that this parcel is the inverse image of the one I just showed you. Its new growth and reduction of fuel, it appears, made the parcel more resistant to the big burn when it came. Bill Gamage has said this: if we are to survive, let alone feel at home, we must begin to understand our country. If we succeed, one day we might become Australian.
Resilience. The fourth and the last Wadandi gift we want to talk about is the inspiration of resilience. For 3,000 generations, my people have learned to bounce back from setbacks and temporary hardships and suffering. We were here well before the last ice age. Our territory in the ice age was much broader, maybe 40 kilometres out to sea. Our homeland filled the entire Lewin Plains westward, now submerged under sea. We lived through the changes in the climate so dramatic that the sea levels dropped dramatically. We lived in a cold, dry world where our richest hunting and fishing were on the Great Plains westward. Then in a dramatic and quick change, the sea rushed in again and the Wadandi traditional country was submerged. Undalup are working on research with UWA, with Dr. Tim Langlois, to look beneath the water of the Indian Ocean where we once lived. As we floated around and they were above our old hunting grounds and sacred sites, we noticed how often the new scientific research confirmed the traditional stories that we have been brought up with. We can look down on the submerged watercourse, the valleys, the campsites that our stories say were covered in water in the Great Shaking. Those stories tell us how we had to go to higher ground forever. That was the Lewin Ridge country to the east, and that is the country we live on today.
I want to briefly tell the story of a 7-year-old Wadandi girl whose name was Kamangut. She lived in the middle of the 19th century. For a time in the 19th century, all the people who lived here were frightened, very frightened, everybody, white and black. The white settlers in good faith were trying to establish farms in this very remote area, and they were doing something that was lawful and going about their business. But they had at that time little or no police or military protection, few neighbours, and they were living almost entirely by subsistence from their hard-won produce in strange soil and a weird climate. Wadandi people, on the other hand, were being pushed from the country on which they had subsisted for many thousands of years. Their traditional campsites, their hunting grounds, their water sites were taken. And it can't be surprising to us that the white and black people each wanted to protect the assets that they saw as their own. In 1842, the bustles at Cattle Chosen in the Vass had some flour stolen on a number of occasions. In desperation, Charles Bustle took the 7-year-old Wadandi girl Kamangut into the house and interrogated her about the theft of the flour. The 7-year-old told him nothing. Bustle became more desperate and he held a gun at her head and clicked the trigger over and over. She still told nothing. He put a cap into the gun to heighten the effect. He didn't recognise the gun was loaded. She fell dead at his feet. Charles Bustle was 31 years old. He was charged with manslaughter. He was tried in Perth. He pled guilty. He was fined 1 shilling and received a stern rebuke that he was not to threaten 7-year-olds with guns anymore. This story is part of the complex, moving fabric of relations in our region. As with the Bustle family, there have been very bad and very good times. More recently, Wayne and his people found the remains of what appears to be Kamangut, a bullet hole in the skull. They also found the remains of a young unidentified boy with a damaged skull who doesn't feature in the histories at all. They reburied the bodies with other remains at a nearby property whose family has ancestral connections to the Doonan Wadandi.
Our resilience has helped us manage the loss of our special lands and sites. The sea swallowed many of them after the Ice Age, but others have been damaged much more recently. At Undalup, there used to be a cluster of stones which had been there at least 13,000 years. In very recent times, they have all been moved, piled up into modern cairns, with no meaning by ignorant people who did not know what they were doing. I can't complain that much because I've got a Scottish heritage too. Our resilience is to this carelessness equipped us to be able to at least take detailed reckoning of where the stones once were.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart talks about the culmination of an agenda. It predicts that this will involve a coming together after a struggle. That struggle is not finished. Here in the Coast region, we must not be deterred. And Wayne and I believe the Coast region can continue to lead the way to a fair and truthful relationship between us. We want our region to set an example. This is also why our young people are so important. The next generation of blackfellas and whitefellas will be the winners.
Nichibi, Nanawa, Wadandi Boodja. This is my saltwater country. Nichibi, Gidja, Nunda, Kalap. This is also your home. Nara Jena Bidiwa, Guato, Galari. We will walk this path together. I want to say some things to you in my language. Firstly, Nichibi, Nanya, Wadandi Boodja. Nitcha, come on people. Nichibi, Nanawa, Wadandi Boodja. This means this is my saltwater country. So I'm glad I'm sharing it with you all. Secondly, Nichabi Giji Nunda Kalep. Nichabi Giji. This means this is also your own. And finally, Nala Jen Bidiwa Wata Galawari. Beautiful. This means we will walk this path forward together. If you believe this, I'd like to say this last sentence with me tonight. I want you to say it with me. Say Nala, which means we will. Say Nala again. Now Jenna Biddy, which means footpath. Repeat, Jenna Biddy. Jenna are your feet, and Biddy is a path or walk trail. So Biddy and Bidawa, which is, say, Jenna Biddy Wa.
Jenna Biddy Wa.
Also, Watu, which means move forward. Say Watu. And finally, Gayara, which means together, gathering together. Say Galyara. So let's put it all together again. You just got to remember it all. Yeah. See, I've got it written down here. So
Right.
oh, yeah, boy. I could have just looked up there. Hey? Stuart's got all this small writing there. I could have just, I don't know. So let us put it all together again. Nala Jena Bidiwa Wadu Galawara. We will walk this path forward together. So some homework tonight, because as Stuart and I have said, this was never an open-ended invitation. It is also up to you to carry some obligations, as our culture is sacred, not shared, not given. Yanka, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Burua, see you later.